45 minutes-ish, is to give you all just some things that you can walk away with that are easy to implement and that, as I shared before, just help us stay connected to the season, but help us stay connected to our own sense of well-being in the season. And I mentioned that, when I share these things, I'm not looking at isolated parts. These are not just all about physical body health. These are about how do we connect body, mind, heart, soul, spirit, and create a common thread with those things through this season. And some of these are season specific, but I would also look at all of these as, regardless of time of year, season of year, these are still foundationals, but again, I think they're good reminders and simple things that are profound medicines in life. And when I use the word medicine, I'm not using that in the sense that we're used to in conventional Western society of like, I had to take my medicines and my prescriptions. The Latin root of the word medicine means to heal. And so these are really the things that do heal us at a cellular level in the body that I wanted to bring awareness to as we journey deeper and deeper into this season. So I'm going to start by, and there's just 5 things here. I want to talk about rituals. And when we think, when I say ritual, what does that make you think of?
That's something we do repeatedly.
Yeah. What else?
To honor something.
What'd you say?
To honor something.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
that's great.
Honoring of something.
Yeah.
Having intention, like doing something with an intention and maybe an outcome.
Yes. Cool. Well, I mean, that's it. That's it. And I think, words we all have different working definitions of things. And so I love hearing from other people. But I think for some people too, it's almost like ritual and routines are synonymous. Like they might mean the same thing. And they actually don't. I think we all have routines. Everybody has routines naturally baked into their day. And what do you do when you wake up? What do you do before bed? Ritual to me is digging deeper into those things and really allowing a routine to then invite the magic of life in and grounding into these deeper layers of self and help us stay anchored and aligned in what really matters. Because routines, we can get very mechanical, right? When we do routines, like you can, take your morning walk or pour your morning beverage and be totally somewhere else thinking about your day ahead and to-dos. Ritual is that intentionality and doing something maybe with an outcome, but that outcome might be connecting within so that when you do step out into the world and the day-to-day life and that movement and sometimes busyness, that you've taken time to prepare yourself with that and that you're going out into the world with your anchor, right? There's a quote, I'm going to read this, it's by Ian Thomas, he's a poet. He says, every day the world will drag you by the hand, yelling, this is important, and this is important, and this is important. You need to worry about this, and this, and this. And each day it's up to you to yank your hand back, put it on your heart, and say, no, this is what's important. And to me, I think that's what ritual really captures, is giving you that space, whether it's literally 2 minutes or whatever you have time for, to grab your hand back and say, this is what matters. And I'm pouring into myself and practicing repeatedly the things that allow me to stay connected and to stay anchored. Most of the time, and for most people, it's somewhat unanimous that the morning is the most impactful time to have this sense of ritual. And again, we all have our routines in the morning too. So this might look different than the routine, but this can really look like truly whatever you have time for. There was one woman, we talked a lot about rituals at the retreat that I hosted a couple weeks ago, and one woman just said, my ritual is when I wake up, I put my feet on the ground and I just feel my feet on the ground and I say out loud, thank you for giving me another day. And it can really be that simple if you're bringing intentionality and presence into it. But I think another thing that you can try on is kind of building out, and this wasn't my concept, this was a really beloved friend and teacher of mine who talked on these things at retreat, and she calls it a menu, like a ritual menu of things that do nourish you and do allow you to have that access into the deeper layers of yourself or your kind of life force. And that will be completely individual to you. It might be a little bit of breath work, it might be meditation if that calls and speaks to you, journaling if that does, gentle movement. You can have a dance party. I've been trying to have a lot more of those lately and they're really awesome. Just whatever feels good there, but I think the question to ask is, what do I need today, right? When you have your time to create a ritual, whether that is 60 seconds or 60 minutes, checking in with yourself and saying, what do I need right now, right? We're women, we are cyclical, we are literally not the same human being on a day-to-day basis because of our hormones. And we have this dynamic flux and flow over the course of a month, but also over the course of our life. And so, whereas for men it might be easier for them, my dear friend was sharing that her partner has had the same morning practice for, I think she said like 6 years or something. And for us, it's more about what do we need in this dynamic changing flow of life, right? So creating your menu and asking, what do I want to bring into my ritual experience today? And if the morning doesn't work for you, then maybe just finding, I do think consistency in terms of time can be really helpful and can be really grounding. So again, that might be a wise inquiry is, what is the time of day? Again, even if it's two to 5 minutes, that I know from a day-to-day basis, this time is open for me. And how do I create that space where I can plug in my ritual to stay connected to my well-being and to the season as well. The second is light. And when I say light, what I really mean is this beautiful, magical sun that we have. When I do any talk in any sort of capacity, I always have to speak on the sun and our biological design to be in alignment with it. Because I say this to start, if that sun goes away, all of this goes away. Literally, we as humans go away, plant life goes away, this world stops existing as we know it. It is that important. And we are, from a physiological standpoint, designed to live in alignment with light cues, meaning when the sun comes up, that's when we were designed to wake up, and when the sun goes down, that's when we were designed to downshift and go into rest mode. So when we get out of alignment with that, sometimes even just in little ways, it affects us profoundly. And when we step outside of what's called our circadian rhythm, which is that basic alignment with the sun, you would be shocked to fully grasp the domino effect that that creates on the rest of the body. And it's not isolated to one system. We cannot have complete hormonal balance without our circadian rhythm in alignment. We cannot have digestive balance without our circadian rhythm alignment. We cannot have blood sugar balance without that. So all of these things and this symphony that our body is really waiting for this cue of the sunlight. So the simple ways that we work with that is exposure to morning light. And you know, where this is, why I think it's even more important to speak on this in the winter is because frankly this does become more challenging, right? We know it doesn't get, the sun does not come out until much later in the morning here. I was really loving when it was coming out at like 4:45 in the early summer. So what that can mean is most of us are probably going to be getting up later, or getting up earlier rather than when the sun is coming out. If you can make it a point once the sun does come out to go out there, get natural sunlight exposure directly in your eyeballs, no sunglasses. That sunlight, you want to think of your eyes as an extension of your brain and your nervous system. They're one and the same. And so there's a component of the eyes, it's called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the SCN. That trigger, when the light hits that part of the eye, that is a domino effect that sends regulation and rhythm into the rest of the body. There's not a part of the body that doesn't touch. So that morning light is really what sends that message. So getting morning light exposure as early as you can. On the flip side of that, and I think this can be even more relevant for the winter, is doing a sunset walk, which feels like that's happening at like 2 p.m. these days. So I was out yesterday at like 4, and I was like, wait, please, don't go down. But doing that is kind of that reverse of what I talked about in the morning. That's starting to signal then to the body that, okay, we're going to start to downshift. The nervous system is going to enter a different state with the sun setting. Other ways that we can honor our natural rhythm with the sun is minimizing blue light at night. I could speak on this for an hour, and there is a profound amount of research around the impacts of blue light exposure on multiple levels of our health. But when you think about just, again, how we're designed to be aligned as human beings, it's extraordinarily unnatural to have this, electric blue light right in front of our face right before bed. And I'm also a human living in 2026 almost as well, and I understand that that's part of life. But if you can just give yourself maybe even a little benchmark, maybe it's a few minutes less each night, maybe it's a dedicated time when you are putting the screens away, even if that's just 10-15 minutes before bed. Research typically says that about 90 minutes to 2 hours before bed of minimizing blue light is kind of that golden zone. That can feel like a reach for people. I'm a realist. I understand that, like, when I talk to women about that in practice, they're just like, that's not going to happen. I'm like, cool, how do we meet in the middle? So thinking about what that can look like for you. And then having I can't stress this enough, again, especially in this season, I found personally for me, when we first had daylight savings time and that light changed, it was actually really hard to get in a consistent sleep and wake time after that, to figure out, like, what do I want bedtime to be and what do I want wake up time to be. And I felt off for a really long period of time. But getting back in that spirit and vein of rhythm, the body craves regimen and rhythm. And so one of the best things we can do is send it consistent signals of, this is when we go to bed, when we turn off the lights and go to sleep, this is when we wake up, right? That's been a quote unquote soft therapy in practice. I've found, it's an interesting mindset where we are. People really love to emphasize, their supplement protocols and the kind of biohacky things. The real work and the real medicine is really in these things that we're talking about, because I've had so many clients come back and tell me, like, I think the most profound shift happened when I got myself in a consistent sleep and wake time. Mm-hmm. And that does help us align with any season, but especially this season when the lighting is a little wonky. But just staying in that regimen is so helpful for the body to know what to expect and to know how to stay in its own rhythms, whether that's the rhythm of digestion, the rhythm of our cycles. There's a lot of different ways that help support the body. The third thing is fuel, and I use the word fuel and nutrition and food almost interchangeably. And this is, I could give classes for 10 hours on women's nutrition. It's a huge part of the work that I do in practice in helping women understand, what does personalized nutrition look like for you? Because there is not a one size fits all. There are general guiding principles that I can feel really good about recommending to just about any woman. But honestly, that's where having the functional based labs comes in, as we start to understand, oh, here's where there's some breakdown happening in the gut microbiome or in your blood sugar handling or nutrient gaps that we just innocently don't know about. Those are the personalized ways we can help use nutrition as a therapy to support the body. But what I want to talk about in this sense is winter fuel, right? What does that look like? How can we support our bodies with nourishment? And this is a time of year where, like, we have so much, pardon my language, but just like so much bullshit messaging about food and shame around food and indulgences and all, traditions around food. And I love food. I love cooking. I love enjoying food. It is a huge and frankly dysfunctional part of my own family history. I always tell the story, like, one of my dad's, like, the his biggest way of bonding with my sister and I would be Friday night fried donut parties growing up. And so it would be like 9:30 and we'd be in bed and he'd flicker the lights and he would have made fried donuts. So like, I get it. I think what I want to help inspire is reminding that you are really the one who claims agency over the foods that are going into your body, right? We get to make those decisions for ourselves, and that goes for anything in health. Agency is a word I use almost multiple times a day in practice because yes, we have all of these societal norms and this kind of soup of messages and old stuff as women that we've carried for a long time, and we have a present day and a present body where we get to say, this is what I'm claiming agency over in my life. And just because there is a lot of, certain foods kind of floating around, it doesn't mean that you have to say like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to town on these. And if you want to, don't throw your shame about it out the window, right? Because that's not helpful either. Sometimes I think that the shame and spiral we create around having quote unquote bad foods is even more deleterious to the body than just eating those foods in the first place. And so give yourself grace, but remember that you do have agency over whatever anyone is, trying to tell you to eat. And that each bite we take, and I mean this in a literal sense, this is not exaggerative, it is sending a message to ourselves. Food is one of the most important signals that we send to ourselves to inform them, hey, you can do your jobs. And part of the kind of paradigm of functional wellness is believing, because it's true, that our cells do know what their jobs are. There's so many things about the body to me that are just absolutely mind-blowing when I really think about it. And it is absolutely mind-blowing to me that our cells, when our cells are first created, they're what's called undifferentiated, meaning they don't have roles. And then they literally have this natural intelligence that becomes programmed into them to tell them, hey, this is your role. This is the role you're playing. But we have to send them the right signals and give them the right resources to do those jobs. And that's where we've become really far departed with a lot of what those resources are in modern day. And one of those things is food. And so just again, I think that helps with that sense of agency around food is, oh, this is a message that I'm sending to my body to create health or to diminish it. And that might be a strong word, but and then a couple of more tactical things here that I want to share, and I think a lot of these will be very yeah, of course, these are logical. It's winter, it's cold outside, so cold foods don't necessarily jive with the body as much this time of year. Things like raw salads, cold smoothies, cold drinks. I say this as my cold brew is sitting there. I can't give up the cold brew, but I do a lot of other warming things. So warming foods is what the body is looking for because we're naturally running colder within the body. And this is more of a Chinese medicine perspective, what they call digestive fire. That digestive fire, which literally is the heat that helps break down and absorb and use our food, and that's energy. Energy comes from heat in the body. We have to have that to properly digest our food. And so when we're throwing cold food into an already cold system, it's a weakened digestive fire that might look like slower bowels, gas, bloating, fatigue. It can look like a lot of different things, but warm foods are really where it's at. So soups, stews, broths, hot teas, hot beverages, and then just warm foods in general, right? Casseroles. I'm working on a winter nourishment guide that I'll be sending you all. I'm gonna have it done probably right around the time of the solstice to help, with just some of my favorite recipes of this time of year and just simple things. Ashley's gonna be designing it, so don't give her the spoiler alert. But it'll have a whole plethora of these resources and fun things you can draw on. So warming as far as temperature, and then we also have certain herbs and spices that also help warm the body. And these are from various ancient medicine traditions, whether traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, Western herbalism, kind of a blend of things. Those are things like ginger, cinnamon, turmeric, chili powder, cayenne pepper, clove, cardamom. Those are beautiful spices to add into your foods, and those are going to be in a lot of the recipes that I've had fun working on these recipes over the last couple weeks. But just simply adding those into like teas, any sort of beverage, sprinkling some on top of your food, those help the body stay warm in a very cold external environment. And then one thing I just want to touch on really briefly, I could talk on this again for hours, but I just want to give this nugget, is this is also a really easy time of year for blood sugar dysregulation to just be a roller coaster ride. And blood sugar is one of the, what we call, this is a long word, but it might be helpful, is a homeostatic control for the body. Homeostasis meaning that's our set point, that's our home base as the body, and homeostasis is when our cells, again, get that signal, okay, we've got our resources, we know how to do our jobs. When our blood sugar is spiking and crashing and going on this crazy roller coaster ride, it's very hard for the body to sense safety internally and again to be resourced. And so while there's a lot of different things we can do, and I will say, again, the lab component is really helpful here, because there is very few women I have worked with who don't have some degree of blood sugar dysregulation. It is way more common than we think. Insulin resistance is way more common than we think, which is ultimately caused by blood sugar dysregulation. So the simple thing here that you can put in place is just make sure every meal, to the best that you can, of course we can't be perfect, and that's not the goal, has some fiber and has some protein in it, because those are ultimately what's going to help line the digestive tract and slow down the absorption. It's like putting a shot right in the vein of glucose versus having a filter to slow down that absorption. So fiber and protein can be very dear friends of yours during this holiday season, but also beyond this as well. The last two things, which I'll wrap up pretty quickly, is this reminder of our breath. And again, this is not exclusive to the holiday season, but as we are embarking on a time where there might be a lot of travel, obligations, things to do, the breath is how we give ourselves an opportunity to return to this very moment. And it is our perpetual link to what's happening in this body. And it is the most reliable anchor that we have, because it's always here. It's always happening whether we are trying to make it happen or not. And that's a really beautiful and powerful thing. Your breath is also your direct line of communication with your nervous system. It is literally, when we talk about food sending signals to the cells, the breath is what sends signals to the nervous system of there is either safety or not so much safety, right? So simply pausing to take a few deep breaths here and there throughout the day, it can really be as simple as that. It's so interesting in practice. There's a couple markers that I can look at to assess I'd say in an indirect way, but a helpful way, breath quality. I have seen in lots and lots of women that I work with, maybe 3, who have really good status around deep breathing and not shallow breathing up here. And so when we think about it in certain ways, the quality of our breath is really what determines the quality of our body and our health and our connection to life. So I want to share just briefly 3 simple breath exercises, and you can do these even if you're laying down, that's fine. Maybe sit up, actually. I take that back. This won't get the full effect. I think you all are going to be familiar with these, but again, I think refreshers are really important and really helpful. So we're just going to start with belly breathing. You can close your eyes, and none of these are fancy. I think, guided breath work can be really cool, but we don't always have to overcomplicate things. So while you're here, just literally like we did at the beginning, take a big breath in through the nose. Send it down through the chest. See if you can expand into the rib cage, into the belly, and send it all the way down to the pelvic bowl. And then slow exhale through the mouth. Let's do 2 more of those. Inhale. Fill up the belly. Exhale slowly. two other things here that I'll share really simply are box breathing. And all that is you can think of it, I'm a visual person, so I like thinking of a square where there's equal parts breathing and holding. So you inhale for 4, and you can do this to any count that feels good for you. Don't get too hung up in the details. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. So we'll try that on. And it's hard for me to breathe and talk at the same time, so I'm just gonna guide here, but you can close your eyes if that feels good. So take your first inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. We'll do one more on your own time. Beautiful. And you may already start to feel things shifting in the body. And if you don't, that's okay too. You're still putting a lot of good in. And then the last one I'll share is called the physiological sigh. This is one of my favorites. I find myself, particularly this time of year, because there is altitude changes, and that changes our natural kind of blood pressure and respiration rates. So this is simple. We take a big breath in, so inhale through the nose. Hold at the top for just a second, and we're going to take one more sip of air in, and then big exhale. Awesome. We'll do 2 more. Big inhale in. Hold. One more sip. One more inhale. Really nice. So any of those feels easy enough, right?
What was the last one called?
Physiological sigh, yeah. So even if you do one of any of those, once or twice throughout the day, if you have longer, great. This is another thing, you could put any of these on your morning or whatever time ritual menu for the day, is any of those exercises. And the last thing I'll wrap up with, I don't want to cut into our solo time too much, is this concept of intention, right? Intentionality. And I think one of the common threads I see with women and the women I work with, and just the women I have in my life, is this deep desire to live intentionally and really think long and hard, and think maybe not even think long and hard, think critically in a good way about what we want to create and what we want to contribute to the world around us. And again, this time of year, it can be easier to get caught up in the busyness and the to-dos, and it almost feels like you're just powering through. It's like, I actually hear this a lot. It's like, yeah, when I get to January, or when I get to, when I get through the holidays, literally, when I get through the holidays. And when you bring a sense of intention into any busy season, regardless of what's going on and how much you have on your plate, intention is what makes all the difference in how you show up. And it really adds to the quality of life immensely when you can kind of stay grounded in that. And so it invites these inquiries in, and I'm going to share these in case you do want to journal on these during free time or outside of our time together, or just introspect on these, just have a reflection time. Is kind of going back to that question, is what do you really want this season to mean to you? Or what do you want your intention to be this season? And then what do you want to give this season? And I don't mean that in the physical stuff way. Most of us do not need more stuff. But what do you want to give to the world around you this season? And conversely, what do you want to receive this season? Because I promise you that you are more than worthy of receiving. And it's a really great inquiry to ask is, what do I really want? What is my heart or my body or my mind in need of? I am a deep believer that the best gift we can give any living being on this planet, whether humans, loved ones, plant life, animal life, this whole world, is a kind presence and our attention. Because in this day and age, attention is something that is in very short demand. And when we bring a kind presence into our life and to everything around us, but most importantly, a kind presence to ourselves, that really does change everything. And I have a lot more I can say on that, but I'm gonna leave it at that. So maybe just thinking about, again, what is your intention? Maybe it's a word, maybe it's a mantra that you take with you into the rest of this season. That can be very powerful.